when did songwriting come into the equation?
Songwriting started my senior year, I'd say, in high school.
Mm.
Um, I was, it's funny because I grew up in Austin, so this music I was listening to at the time, I was really into marijuana. So I was really into playing reggae music.
Yes.
And yeah, that was great. But that kind of expanded into other ventures as far as genres go. I was very, very into reggae music. So I was writing reggae music.
Mm.
But again, that was like the beginning stages and beginning phase of like expanding that guitar journey, I guess you could say, because really what reggae music is bar chords and different timings and stuff like that. So that kind of helped me with the rhythmic style of playing that I have,
Yep.
and learning rhythm guitar very well. But at the same time, it opened up the window for later on when I started realizing, oh, I'm interested in rock, I'm interested in blues, I'm interested in jazz, I'm interested in other styles and genres of music. So, but yeah, the
Yep.
foundation was definitely reggae music for songwriting, and then that ventured into blues, and that's what I currently write today. I'd say is mainly rock blues.
Will you warm up, or have you used, like, do you drink tea with honey or things like that to ever take care of your voice? Yeah. Do you ever lose your voice even?
Oh yes. So being in Austin and kind of playing the bar scene and the gig scene,
Mm.
um, you're basically playing 2.5 to 3 to 4 hour, maybe even 5 hour gigs sometimes.
Wow.
So when you're doing that, you have to learn, like I was saying, what your strengths and what your weaknesses are. So obviously you want to perform and put your heart and soul into every single song, but what that comes with is the toll of potentially losing your voice during your performance, right?
Mm.
So you have to figure out how to kind of minimize those opportunities and perform it at the same level. So like instead of singing or yelling and screaming, trying to figure out how to work on your pitch better to where it's delivered in the same manner, but you're not overdoing it or overworking yourself. So yeah, to your point, I'm drinking tea, I'm drinking honey for those performances. I'm drinking it throughout the entire performance, just trying to keep my vocals warm and good to
Mm.
go because when I had gone I keep referring back to the South by Southwest experience because it's my hometown, so I'm obviously out hanging out with friends too after these shows,
Yeah.
and that's not very good, especially for your vocals.
Yeah.
And after performing for so long, so that ends up kind of damaging what could potentially happen for the next day that you go out and you perform,
Mm.
which kind of happened towards the end. Thank goodness, my voice was starting to give out, and so I was chugging warm tea, trying not to talk, trying to keep myself isolated in the morning, and just drinking tea and honey
Mm.
to where I was preparing myself to go out again, and perform. So yeah, tea and honey is definitely my go-to for sure. Yeah, it can be a pain, man. Like I've definitely blanked out before on a new song at a performance and like trying to remember in my head and like turning back towards the band. I'm like, okay, give me a second. I'm catching on here. Oh yeah, that's what it is.
Uh,
Oof, it's terrible. What is good though is when you have bandmates who have listened to your music and they're like, "Oh yeah, the first word is this," and you're like, "Oh yeah," and that kind of just
yeah.
brings it back to light again for sure.
They do that for me so many times, like Brandon and Sam. And I don't, and I always think, like, as I'm singing the word they just reminded me of, I think in my head, like, why do they know this song better than I do? I literally wrote this.
It's bad. Yeah, it's so bad. You're like, wait, I should know this. Like, it should be on the back of my hand, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, but there's a lot going on. I try to, like, have grace too, because especially if you're leading the song per se, or the atmosphere, the tempo, everything. Sometimes I get caught up in that, right? Like sometimes, especially at ROP, Republic Pie, because there's so much going on, and sometimes like right somebody will walk in and like start dancing and like talking to some girl right in front of me or something, like a stranger, and she's all freaked out, and so right I get caught up in that, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, oh no, I forgot
Like,
this
what's the
word.
song?
Yeah, and it's like amazing how our brains work, because if you get the first word right of a verse, like the whole thing, you don't even have to think about it. But some like if
Yeah,
you don't get that first word, the second word is so much harder, and the third word is even more gone. So
yeah,
yeah,
man.
weird.
uh Pain. I've done both. So typically the way I kind of approach it too is like I don't want to stop writing, because I know the moment that I stop writing, and the like when I'm very very uh, influenced in the moment, I don't want to stop writing, because I know if I do, there's a chance that I will shelf it and I won't go back to it, because that's how I was feeling in the moment, and that was the idea in that moment. And if
Exactly.
I try and go back to it, it's just going to take me hours and hours to figure out and think about what was I thinking, where was I going.
Mm.
And I feel like that definitely stumps me a lot. So I have a lot of unwritten stuff, which
Mm.
is good. And it's like, okay, yeah, it was in the moment, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to go back to that stuff for me personally. Like what you're saying, like you come up with some words and you're like, okay, I'm going to sit on this for an hour or two. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to dig within myself, figure out what I can put down on paper. And
Mm.
then by 2 or 3 hours, I'll have some verses and some choruses going. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that to me, when I'm thinking too much about what I'm trying to, like, what kind of emotion I'm trying to get out, or what my intention is, I
Yeah.
feel like that can definitely stop me in my creative process for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because we get caught in our heads a little too much, like we think too hard or deeply on certain things or certain topics that we're trying to write about,
Yeah.
and that kind of takes away the idea of what what you could just be putting out, like you thinking before speaking, or you're speaking before you're thinking, kind of thing, you know what I
Mm.
mean? So like you're writing before you're thinking, you're just writing away, writing away, writing away, and then all of a sudden you have something.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we can talk about some of just your vision, right? Some of your goals, personally as a musician. Um, yeah, what is your future looking like in your head?
Honestly, what I want to do is, with my next set of songs that I want to work on in the studio, I plan on getting acoustic rough drafts out of the way. Not out of the way, it sounds bad, but I feel I already have it. I have everything already to go,
Yeah.
into go into a studio, knock it out,
Yeah.
all the parts and pieces ready to go. So what I want to do is get that going, and then what I also want to do is take that, work with some bandmates,
Mm.
and I want to create an organic live type style recording, kind of
Yeah.
like how they did in like the 60s and 70s with analog. And
Yeah.
I do want to do that. I've always wanted to do that. I feel
Mm.
like that'd be a really fun and cool experience, and getting analog tape and having that raw organic feel of, okay, so guys, we've been working on this in a rehearsal space for months now. We
Wow.
have all of our parts down. Let's knock these songs out as if we were playing a live performance, have it on a tape, and then kind of go in, mix and master that, and having it very raw, organic,
Mm.
kind of live sounding album.
Dude, yeah, that sounds really cool. I feel like I feel like it'd be nice to take a step back a little bit in that way, like use what we've learned, but then to remind ourselves of just like the moment, that present moment. Um,
Yes.
yeah.